Good evening. The Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District Board of Trustees is now convened in a board work session on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the boardroom of the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District, Mark Henry Administration Building, for the purpose of reviewing that portion of the Monday, May 6, 2024 regular board meeting agenda designated as action items and to hear designated reports and recognitions posted in the meeting notice as required by Texas law. I want to welcome the members of the audience and our online viewers to this meeting of the Board of Trustees. We're here to set goals, listen to reports, approve budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and make policy for the district. It is not the role of the board to make day-to-day operational decisions. The management and day-to-day operations of the district are the responsibility of the superintendent. We have policies and procedures in place to resolve concerns and issues. This is a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, not a meeting of the public. The meeting is open to all who wish to attend and hear the matters discussed. Audience members may not participate in the meeting outside of the designated agenda items for citizen participation or agenda comment. Disruption of the meeting by any person, including the audience, is inappropriate and will be addressed by the board president or the board's counsel as the meeting parliamentarian. Continued or repeated disruption of any board meeting by words or actions may result in removal. Prior to this meeting, board members received information related to items on tonight's agenda. Agenda items will not necessarily be handled in the order listed on the notice. During the course of this meeting, the board may determine that a closed session is necessary. In that event, the board will meet in closed session to consider matters duly posted for this meeting as permitted by sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. These proceedings are airing live on the district website. They will also be available on the district website following tonight's meeting. For the video to adequately reflect the proceedings, I respectfully ask that you please refrain from talking while others are speaking and that cell phones are turned off or in silent mode. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening and for your interest in the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. We do not have any state represented elected officials, Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts tonight. The invocation, pledge of allegiance, vision and mission statement, remarks and announcements, recognitions, board comments, citizen participation reports and information items will be presented at the regular board meeting on Monday, May 6th, 2024. At each open meeting of the board, patrons who have registered in accordance with the procedures established by BED regulation may address the board during the designated agenda comments period prior to the board's consideration or action on the item. Unless the agenda is otherwise rearranged by the board president during the meeting, agenda comments will generally be taken prior to each agenda item. Also, in accordance with the procedures established by BED regulation, patrons may address the board during citizen participation on any matters of interest or concern that are not posted agenda items. For detailed information and instructions on registering to speak under agenda comments and citizen participation, please go to the district website at cfisd.net. Patrons who have registered to speak this evening may see the order of names listed on the screen. Before your name is called, please move forward and sit in one of the reserved section chairs in the front row. When you approach the podiums, you will see a monitor inside each podium. When it is your time to begin speaking, a digital presentation timer will be displayed at the top of the monitor. You will see a 30-second and a 15-second warning light to wrap up your comments. The timer will be set in accordance with the number of speakers that are registered this evening. Although agenda item 5A will not be presented this evening and will be presented at Monday's regular board meeting, we have several speakers on this item this evening. And we'll head into the speakers on that agenda item 5A. Our first speaker is Ashley Buckner. Yes, we have, because we do have, per policy, we have 19 speakers, so each speaker will be allotted 1 minute in order to present to the board. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You'll be ready with the timer? I will. Okay, you will push the button. Each speaker, understand that you push the button when you see the green light. That is how you will know that you are able to be heard. Thank you.
Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Mic on? Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Buckner. I don't know if you've seen, I created a Facebook group. I did not mean for it to get that big, but I am, I'm very, I'm sorry, words just kind of escape me when it comes to how wonderful our, 30-second warning. Wow. Sorry, guys. I think it just goes to show how many people in our community really, want some change. 15 seconds. And I want to work together on this. I know I don't envy, Doug, I don't envy your job, your position, really. And I just hope that we can make some meaningful change. And in the end of the day, Abbott can really listen and give us those funds.
Thank you. Your time is up. Please
okay.
conclude your remarks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
The next speaker is Allie Fitzpatrick.
Dr. Killian, what is your plan for getting us the funding that we are owed from the state of Texas? Governor Abbott could call a special session today and get our schools the funding they desperately need. It is time you defend this district and stand up publicly to Abbott, the Texas Ledge, and the TEA. You are the leader of the third largest district in Texas, and as that leader, your voice should be the loudest and clearest, echoing through the halls of power in Austin. Your letter to the community has no mention of the real reason we are in this funding crisis, which is that Abbott is refusing to fund the schools until he gets vouchers. There is no excuse for your silence and continued dishonesty with the people of this district regarding Abbott's refusal to fund public schools. By calling for a special session publicly, you will be sending a powerful message to Abbott, the Ledge, and the TEA that fully funding education is non-negotiable and Cy-Fair will not be bullied. It is past time you take up the mantle of leadership and be the champion Cy-Fair ISD deserves.
Dr. Tara Cummings.
There's a crucial fact about this budget crisis that many people, including our conservative trustees and superintendent, haven't had the cojones to acknowledge. This crisis was manufactured on purpose by Governor Greg Abbott and Republican elected officials. The state has the money to fund public education, but refuses to do so. Abbott is holding public schools, our children, and our collective future hostage in a temper tantrum over vouchers. Abbott and Republican officials are to blame for this crisis. We must send the Republican Party a clear message that unless and until they fund public ed, Texans will not vote for them. November is coming. Dr. Killian, Marine, what happened to honor, courage, and commitment? Tell the whole truth and say it with your chest. Dr. Macias, an email that wasn't even blind copied at 11:36 p.m. to let librarians know they were axed? Really? To our power holders and decision makers.
Your time is up. Please conclude your remarks.
And show some dignity. Thank you.
Zoe Lang, and we'll give her a moment to make her way forward. There she is.
I'm a Cy-Fair ISD 7th grade student. I'm autistic. My mom helped me put my feelings, thoughts, and words together for this because when I care about something important, I feel very anxious. It can be hard for me to organize my words. My librarian at Pope Elementary, Ms. Kreitz, kind of changed a lot of things for me. She made her library a very safe place for me when I felt like I wasn't a person and just a set of bad behaviors before I was diagnosed. She created a community that valued everyone in her library. She introduced me to favorite books, which helped me find a community of others who were often neurodivergent as well, who enjoyed the same books, and we if she can't keep making her library a safe place for other children like me, it could very well save lives. Save money, but cost lives. How much money is one kid's life worth to you? I know it's important to save money, but in the words of Jesus, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Thank you for your comments.
Michelle Spees. Michelle Spees. Michelle Spees. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. Tracy Orsak. Tracy Orsak. Katie Noble. Katie Noble. Lisa Abuka. See her. Thank you.
We are in this mess today because a bunch of people, including those sitting at the dais, voted for Abbott, Patrick, Betancourt, Colcourse, Harless, Oliverson, Schofield, and/or Hull, who are all anti-public education. They are all anti-public education because their campaign donors want to profit millions of tax dollars administering vouchers. Follow the money. Stop voting for these people. This is the result. People at the dais are believers in the Seven Mountains Mandate. One of the first things you do to conquer the education mountain is remove the librarians. Because then you can remove the books. Removing the books eliminates critical thinking. Dr. Killian, not having a librarian at every single campus makes our kids dumb and shows us exactly who you are and what you believe in. Be sure to vote on May 4th, May 28th, and November 5th for pro-public education candidates.
Wendy Cowan.
My name is Wendy Cowan, and I'm a parent of Cypher ISD. I come from a family that includes an elementary school principal, 2 librarians, a counselor, a music teacher, and a state championship football coach, and multiple grade level teachers. I'm obviously the odd one out because I'm not an educator, but one thing I've learned as the former staffer of 3 Republican state senators is that the funding issue we're in is the direct result of Governor Abbott and our elected officials. We need you to be open and aggressive in pursuing the public tax dollars we pay that are being held hostage by the state. We don't need a superintendent that glosses over the true cause in an email to our community and fires librarians late at night via email. Our librarians serve teachers and students as valuable guides that foster a love of learning. Do the right thing. We will remember when we vote.
Jeremy Eugene. Push the button till you get a green light. We want to hear you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Jeremy Eugene. I'm a teacher at Cypress Park High School. I teach special education, English, and reading. Obviously, I can speak to the importance of libraries, but I believe that you all know that. Everyone in this room knows that. So I want to instead say thank you to everyone for showing up for us. Thank you to everyone that has spoken so far. Thank you to Zoe. Thank you to Ashley for starting the Facebook group. I feel very represented at Cypress Park. I feel empowered. And the one time that I have not felt empowered while teaching at this district is the time that you all have decided that you would like to remove some of my coworkers. And so what I would ask you to do is, as Ashley has stated, call on Governor Abbott to call a special session and release the funds that are needed in order to fully fund our schools and continue with what has been a very amazing experience for me, for my coworkers,
Thank
and
you. Your
for
time
all
is
the
up.
students that
Please
I
conclude your remarks. Thank you.
support. Thank you.
Caleb Holmes.
Howdy, my name is Caleb Holmes. I'm not going to be the one to get up here and bash any of our trustees or our elected officials, but what we have seen is a common trend between all of these, is that our elected officials make decisions without understanding the true consequences that the future generations will face. We have seen countless times again when our elected officials make decisions without advising counsel from the people that are directly affected, like myself, any other parents or teachers and educators in this room. As long as we continue to neglect the voice of the youth and the voice of the people that are directly affected by this issue, our nation, our district, and our state will forever be burdened with issues similar to this and similar to a bunch of different issues that we face across our nation. Thank you so much.
Nikki Cowart.
My name is Nikki Cowart, and I'm the president of the Cy-Fair chapter of the American Federation of Teachers. We were all in this room together last week for the special called budget meeting, and I do not waver from my remarks during that meeting, and yet so much has transpired since just a week ago. A very emotional weekend for many employees and families, including my own family. Folks, you've heard all of our local news media report that our beloved Cy-Fair ship has hit the tip of the iceberg. And as you can tell from the hurt and fear here tonight, this is only going to get worse. Let me say it again. This is only going to get worse without proper funding for our school district. And the only silver lining to that is that I see new faces, friends and colleagues coming together and asking how they can help, asking how we could be in this situation, how could we avoided this iceberg altogether. Without help from the state, these budget cuts will not stop with one department or one program. The possible cuts to transportation alone make my head spin. And while an official reduction in force might not be in place today, our union is already getting flooded with
Thank
calls.
you. Your time is up. Please conclude your comments.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Josh Allen. I'm a parent of one current and one future Cy-Fair student. Today I stand before you with a sense of profound disappointment. Our Cypress-Fairbanks School Board and our state leadership has failed our children. You are accountable, firstly, for complacency in the face of Governor Abbott's neglect on our public schools and education system in a misguided bid for school vouchers, and secondly, for your poor planning around a known upcoming budgetary shortfall. Your inaction has led to terrible consequences for our trusted school system. By eliminating librarians, we are depriving our children of essential resources and guidance. We are limiting their access to information, stifling their curiosity, and hindering their intellectual growth. So to our school board, I say this: it is time to step up, to publicly stand up for our children, clearly demand the funding they deserve. If you do not step up, we and me will make sure that our mission is to ensure that when it is time for you to be replaced, it will happen swiftly.
Your time is up. Please conclude your remarks.
David Luke Patterson.
A few months ago, Trustee Julie Heineman came to my Cub Scout meeting and talked to us about how we could help our community. She inspired me to come speak tonight because I want to help my school community. Librarians are so important. I go to Swanky Elementary, and I love Miss Arnett, our librarian. She reads to us, puts books on hold for us, does name that book, puts on book fairs, and so much more. Who will do that? Miss Arnett has helped me love to read. She has made the library a safe place for kids who sometimes feel left out or like they don't quite fit in. The library is a safe place for me. It's the heart of the school. Miss Arnett is the heart of our school. Swanky won't be the same without her. Every day, me and my siblings love her so much, and so does my whole school. Dr. Killian, why would you take away someone we all love so much? Please let her stay every day because I know you can.
Elizabeth Kolodzy.
Kolodzy. Hi, I'm Dr. Kolodzy. I'm a statistics professor at a major university, but the opinions I express here are my own and not those of my employer. So I wanted to say that librarians matter. They matter to my kid. They matter to these kids. In one study, for example, to bring some statistics to the table, of course, they compared schools with libraries and with librarians and schools without librarians. And they found that those with librarians had kids who could read at an advanced level much more often than kids who couldn't. It's significant, it matters, and it matters even after you control for the percentage of kids that have free lunch, right? So I just wanted to say, underfunding public education is not an option for me. It's not an option for my kid. I want her to have the same opportunities that I had. Thank you so much for your time.
Monica Hatfield.
My name is Mo Hatfield, and I'm a student at Cyfair High School. At the last board meeting, many of the board members highlighted how much they support the work of the Budget Reduction Advisory Committee. However, following that meeting, Dr. Killian made the decision to drastically reduce the number of librarians. The community has been blindsided by this sudden decision that will only harm our students. What happened to the district's motto of every child, every day? Stick to the plan that was shown in the meeting that already gave us $4 million more budget cuts than were planned to be made this year. Mostly, I am appalled by Dr. Killian's lack of communication to the community regarding this decision. I hope this decision will be reversed because students need our librarians. My librarian is part of the reason I come to school every day. Thank you.
Gretchen Herrera.
Good evening. My name is Gretchen, and I'm a nurse and lifelong CFISD resident. My parents initially came to Cypress because they heard of CFISD's reputation for quality education, and it is the same reason that 30 years later, I too chose to raise my 3 kids in what I've always felt was the best in the state. Never once did it cross my mind that a manufactured crisis by our own state government that we elected would take that privilege away, and yet here we are. In my line of work, when a patient is crashing in the ICU, everyone on the unit rushes to the bedside to help. The patient and families fully put their trust in us as the experts to save them because they are helpless in such a situation. Right now, during this budgetary crisis for our district, our kids are the helpless victims, and we are all rushing to their side to help. However, we need the experts we entrusted to care for our children's education with to help. You all here on the board, along with our governor, solely have the keys to this crash cart, but are failing to resuscitate our children's futures.
Thank you. Your time is up. Please conclude your
Please call for a special
remarks.
session immediately. Thank you.
Francis Ramirez Romero.
Good evening, all. I join everyone here today who is feeling a lot of emotions over the devastating budget cuts that our administration and school board are faced with. It has truly become a Sophie's Choice situation that has been imposed by our state's highest leader. As a longtime member serving on our district's Community Leadership Committee, a committee charged with advocating our district's needs at the state level, I can attest to the fact that for the past 2 legislative sessions, we have communicated to our state legislators the need for an increase in the student basic allotment due to the rising costs and the lack of an inflation index in the current funding formula. While that almost happened this past session, that attempt was blocked by our governor through the last regular session and the 3 called special sessions, and instead he chose to use public school funding as leverage to try to pass his voucher legislation. The money to fund our schools is there. It's in the state's bank account.
Thank you. Your time is up.
So let us redirect
Please conclude
our
your remarks.
voice to the governor. Thank you.
Heather Smith.
Our CFISD vision is to lead, L-E-A-D, learn, empower, achieve, dream. When we built our schools, we envisioned that our children would learn from top-notch teachers. We imagined our learners and staff being empowered by dedicated administrators. We visualized all students having the chance to achieve success with incredible paraprofessionals and support staff. We opened our doors to invite young minds to dream with our inspiring librarians. I can tell you that we did not envision this and these budget cuts, and certainly not more drastic ones possibly ahead. We call on this board to back the vision. We understand residents need to press urgently on state representatives, Morath and Abbott, to release critical funds, and we expect this board to do the same. We expect the board to lean into new revenue streams and rapidly implement those. Residents and all Texas school districts are taking note of action or inaction and will remember at upcoming polls. Now is the time to
Thank you. Your time is up.
for our
Please conclude
vital
your
vision
remarks.
and our beloved CFISD.
The board will now review the consent agenda items. During review of the following action items, any board member may remove one or more items, at which time these items will be addressed and voted on individually. If any board member has a question regarding an agenda item, please ask to be recognized on the consent agenda items. Agenda item 6A, the board will consider approving the minutes of the April 4th, 2024 regular board meeting on Monday. Any questions? Thank you. 6B, the board will consider approving the budget amendments for the period of January 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2024. Today are questions only. Does the board colleagues have any questions? Item 6C, the board will consider approving the 2024-2025 TEACS certification form. We are going to move this agenda item to non-consensus under agenda item 7B, and so we'll address questions there. 6D, the board will consider approving the list of advanced courses for exemption purposes for the 2024-25 school year. Do any of my colleagues have questions regarding these advanced courses? Seeing none, we'll move on to 6E. The board will consider approving the granting of a sanitary sewer easement to the Harris County Municipal District number 165, located along West Road between West Green Boulevard and the Grand Parkway, the future Avalon Development Elementary site, and authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate the final terms and execute all related documents. Do we have any questions? Thank you. 6F. The board will consider approving construction proposals and contracts paid from bond funds to the recommended contractors and authorize the superintendent or designee to execute all necessary documents related to such contracts as follows. 6F1, the 2023 Eldridge and Falcon transportation renovations. 6F2, the 2023 Windfern Annex and Carlton Center renovations. Do we have any questions?
I do. Jesse, could you walk us through the need for chillers? It's a large number, and so helping the public understand why we're expending this and what the impact was over the last school year.
Yes, sir, Mr. Scanlon, which project specifically are you asking about?
Yeah, so we've got a list of chillers that were lighting controls and chillers, each one of which, you know, it's a fair amount of capital. And so just walking through for the public what's going into the renovation for the Eldridge and Falcon transportations.
For the Falcon Transportation Project?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So for the Falcon Transportation Project, excuse me, we are installing a new metal roof on the Falcon buildings. We are air conditioning the service shop bays, which was part of the 2019 bond. We're installing a new fire sprinkler system. We're installing slip-resistant floor coating at the service bays, a new electrical switchgear at the Falcon facility, and along with miscellaneous mechanical, electrical, and plumbing upgrades.
Yep. And so this is normal during the notion of maintenance for our facilities to make sure that they're safe.
Yes, sir, it is. All of these systems are at the end of their life cycle and need to be replaced.
Very good. All right. I don't have any other questions.
I have a question. I did notice we only had 2 bidders on each project. Was that all the bids that we received? We typically have 3 to choose from.
Yes, ma'am. In this case, only 2 bidders were responsive in both situations.
Thank you. Okay, we will now move on and proceed to the non-consent agenda items. 7A. The board will consider approving on first reading additions, revisions, or deletions to district policy. The first policy is 7A1, which is DEC local, compensation and benefits, leaves and absences. There's a revision. 7A2, DFBB local, term contracts, non-renewal, a revision. 7A3, EED local, instructional arrangements, student schedules, a revision. And 7A4, EHAB local, basic instructional program, required instruction for elementary, revision. Do my colleagues have any questions?
I do have just one. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I want to go to the long-term contracts, DFBB. So we have made some quite a bit of changes to this. It seems to me that we're adding the process of board hearing. Can you walk me through why we're adding a board hearing to this particular procedure and kind of just the rationale behind this particular change?
If it's okay, Mr. Ray, I'll answer it because it was my recommended change. Most districts, I would say, we're probably the only one that still did non-renewals to TEA, and it costs. You have to actually pay for the hearing examiner. So one way to, in looking at ways to save money, was to have that hearing before the board. And that's what the majority of school districts across the state do. And so it's a savings. So that was the purpose of my recommendation.
Okay, so it's a savings, and it's also to kind of bring us in line with what the rest of the school districts do in this process. Okay, thank you.
Yes, very much.
The other question I have is referring to, I believe it's item 7A3. Pull it up here quick. EAD local. Okay, so one of the major changes I see going throughout this document for the instructional arrangements for student schedules, the time for dropping a course. We've changed that from 3 to 2 weeks. Similar question, kind of what was the justification behind that? What problems are we seeing with the 3 weeks and necessitated us move it to a 2-week notice?
So the requirement is that students are in class 90% of the time to earn credit. So the change from the 2 to 3 weeks, it has to do with that 3 weeks went beyond the 90% of the time.
Answers my question. Thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment regarding 7A3 EED local. And that is, in addition to changing the time frame from dropping a class from 3 weeks to 2 weeks, is that there is a slight change beginning with the class of 2026 regarding students who qualify for either early release, late arrival, or both. So I just encourage parents as you start to have those conversations with your senior students in high school that you review this policy to make sure that you are aware of the change for the qualification for, again, early release or late arrival.
I had a question on EHAB local. I just wondered in that special considerations on page 404, where it talks about the size of the classes, that they should never exceed the number of 2 sections, and that the instructional aid shall be assigned to classes that have more than 45 students in attendance. And I just wondered about the wisdom of the word instructional aids versus just like instructional ratio. It might be a 2-teacher situation, and maybe some other kind of assigned role. Maybe there could be a situation where the school size calls for 2 teachers in that content area. Thank you. Anyone else have questions on these policies?
We could change it to instructional staff.
I agree. That's a good catch and change. Would the policy committee be okay with making that revision and not having to go back to the policy committee, making it for Monday? I think that's a good idea, Dr. Blassingame.
Other questions?
Yeah, on the same, so grades 1 through 5, on the same document, page 3 of that document. So there's a note here that a class period may range from 45 minutes to, and you're marked out 60, and it's increased to 75. Could you walk us through the rationale there?
So, depending on the classes that we have, for example, our English language arts classes, they have an extended amount of time. This policy needed some revisions, some updating. That's really the bottom line here with this. And the times, like the schedules that are there, they change. And so that's why we moved the schedules to the regulations to make sure that we keep them up to date. But it really is, it's really what we have been doing. It just hadn't been updated.
It would be nice in the future if we could put a policy up so that the audience can see what we're talking about when we're discussing it. Yeah. So, and I think the rationale here, so I see a lot of the specifics in the policy, and we discussed this in a work session, but I'm going to talk about it in the open because this is can you walk through the rationale behind all the detail regarding a specific topic and how many periods it's going to meet and the constraints that the policy did impose versus what this revision is going to do?
So again, when you look at this policy, the original policy, the bulk of the policy basically listed the schedules for each of the class periods. This is not basically what we've been following. We just had not cleaned it up. This is basically a cleanup for this policy. And then the recommendation is that we move the pieces that are the schedules to regulation. Because in regulation, it's easier to change. Depending on the needs and what areas we might need more support in, like math might get a little bit more time next year versus maybe social studies. We make those changes instructionally, but because it was in policy, it just stayed that way. And so this basically is a cleanup that moves the time periods over to the regulation for every single area that you see there.
Got it.
It's not anything that we've been doing differently, Mr. Scanlon. It just hadn't been updated in quite a while, actually.
Yep.
2005.
And so I've got one more, back on 7A1, DEC local compensation and benefits. Marty, can you walk us through the topic for law enforcement line of duty and leave, that change?
Yeah, that was a legislative change, and we worked really 2 or 3 meetings, human resources, and then we worked with chief, and we worked with leaves as well, the leave department, as well as our workers' compensation carrier, and then really just tried to figure out how to put that into place in the K through 12 setting. It was a statutory change regarding first responders in general, and obviously most first responder agencies are part of a municipality, and so it's a little bit of a square peg in a round hole. So we were looking at it also in CFISD. We actually have some richer leave provisions than the municipality. For instance, we provide assault leave, which is longer and more robust than the line of duty. We also have temporary disability that we make available to all employees, and statutorily it's only required to be made available to classroom teachers. And so we actually have a richer leave scheme, and so we kind of had to figure out how to do it. We also talked from an implementation standpoint, trying to figure out what is line of duty based on TCOL, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement definitions. So we worked together. We also talked about, in regulation, implementing, at least for the first couple of years, we're going to kind of if there is an injury that comes up and we think it might be line of duty instead of one of the other leaves, then we actually are going to put a couple of the lieutenants, maybe myself or Harry, and then one of the HR reps, we're all going to look at it together to make sure that we're slotting it correctly.
Got it.
So it's kind of a long answer to your relatively short question, but it is to enact a statutory change that wasn't readily easy to figure out, but we think we've got a good plan in place for it.
Okay, and I was looking around the room for Chief, so I don't see him, but that's fine.
Chief's not here today, I don't think.
Thank you, Marnie.
Any further questions on 7A? Seeing none, we'll move on to 7B. 7B, the board will consider approving the district instructional materials recommendations for the 2024 and 2025 school year. And as far as questions go, don't forget that we moved 6C here, which is the board will consider approving the 24-25 TEACS certification form. So any questions on those two items we'll field now? Seeing none, we'll move on to 6C. Sorry, 7, sorry, that was 7B. Todd?
7B, yeah.
That's the right one, right? Excuse me. Linda, State Board of Education has approved these textbooks, is that correct?
That is correct.
Did we get any additional feedback for any of these books?
We had a number, actually, we had, after the last board meeting, we had March 27th through 28th as days where anyone could come here to the district office and view the books. We had 2 people that came and viewed books. You may recall that I shared last month that we also had some days that were set aside to view the books. We had 1 person that came to view books. In addition to that, we also, at your request, we worked with the textbook companies to be able to put on the website a link to be able to view all the different, so they could either view it online or they could come here. And we had 1 person that submitted any comment regarding the online process.
Okay. And doing my own research, I understand that there's that the State Board of Education got over 2,000 pages of feedback from a group out of Dallas concerning some of the materials. And again, I asked you, and again, I know this is not on you, it's on the State Board of Education, but we didn't get the revised version of that on the textbooks, is that correct?
Everything that was online had the revisions in it. The hard copies did not.
Gotcha.
But everything online had the revisions in it. And as my team reviewed those revisions, because each content area reviewed everything, and teachers, the majority of the revisions had to do with grammatical errors, things of that sort. There wasn't a lot of content. There was some, but most of it was grammatical errors or things of that sort. Yes, ma'am.
Linda, I had a question. I think in biology, for example, were there 3 textbook options, and we selected Sabas, but was there also a Harcourt selection that was an option that was revised at the State Board?
I believe that there was was there an HMH version, Heather? Yes, there was.
Thank you. I might ask to see that, those 2 next to each other. Any other questions regarding instructional materials or TEACS certification form?
I have a question. Linda, on one of the environmental science, they only had 1 book that had been submitted for this next year. Was there any more that were added or no?
For the, only what was submitted, and that's what we chose.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the instructional materials? Okay, well, moving on to 7C. The board will review and consider adoption of revised board operating procedures outlining the duties of a public official. I will segue this over to the chair of our governance committee, Mr. Ray.
Madam Vice President, trustees, the Governance Committee brings before a draft revision of the board operating procedures for your review and comment. The committee conducted 3 meetings, which included the superintendent and our general counsel. Much of the board operating procedures was determined to be sufficient, but the committee has made several recommended changes for review. Key areas that were addressed were board member standards of behavior, board meeting procedures, board access and requests for information, trustee communications, and various other changes throughout the document. The committee members and staff will answer any questions at this time.
Any questions to my right?
I had 1 question. There was I thought we were doing this in closed session. Let me see. I can remember. There was a reference to no longer using a modified version of Robert's rules for board meetings, and that there was a separate document outlining our procedures, but I didn't see a separate document attached.
So that was something that we discussed. We may have to actually re-include the reference to modified Robert's rules. But what we did discuss as a board committee is actually creating our own meeting rules to be a little bit more straightforward and to kind of reflect more about how we operate. But Marnie, for our purposes now, if we do want to go ahead and approve the board operating procedures, we may want to put in the reference to the modified Robert's rules for now, and then maybe at a later date start drafting some meeting rules for our meeting at a later date in future meetings. Can I get your thoughts on that?
Yes, sir, and I thought I had scanned it to the back, so that was actually my error. I thought I had attached, because what we had looked at, it's not that the committee wanted to abandon Robert's Rules of Orders. What we talked about, we've previously referenced that we were going to utilize Robert's Rules of Order for small assemblies, but we really weren't using all of it, and so we talked about just in that document using the parts that we use and taking out, for instance, there's just several layers to Robert's Rules of Order, even for small assemblies, that just don't apply to us. And so that's really what we had done. And so I was going to remove, and I thought I had removed those pages, and when I scanned to create the PDF to send, I thought I had attached it. So let me get that out to you. I'm sorry I didn't recognize that. But that's what we had contemplated, was still using the Robert's Rules of Orders for small assembly, but the pieces that we use. And because of that, we decided we probably couldn't call it Robert's Rules of Orders for small assemblies anymore, since we were taking out some of those motions beyond, Mr. Rafe, I think we talked about, for instance, introducing the motion, amending it if we need to have discussion on an amendment. Robert's Rules of Order is really to accomplish, as we talked about in our committee meeting, two things. One thing is to make sure that each person is heard, that the minority is heard, but the will of the majority is observed. And so that's really, and to make sure that when you create a record, that it's clear. So if you're amending or et cetera, we talked about even in recent times when we've talked about things in amending, just making sure that everyone knows what we're voting on, so that everybody is clear. So that was really the only point of, kind of modifying it. And so I will reattach and I'll scan that again and send that to everybody, because, and then you can decide on Monday how you want to proceed with either amending it as we kind of talked about, or putting back the reference to the small assembly.
So the document that you're going to send us, is that going to be the modified Robert's Rules, the modified Robert's Rules for small assembly? Because we didn't actually draft rules for meeting procedures to, our own specific rules. We haven't drafted that yet. So what specifically would you send for us to have as an attachment for this, in this reference?
Thank you. What I was referencing was the Robert's Rules of Order, small assembly, but, I had, in that draft that I had given you all, I had said, we don't use the, so I was going to send the version with the parts marked out that we weren't using, was what I meant to send. That was our idea for then using that as our springboard.
I think that would work for our purposes, unless there's any comments to the contrary.
Any other questions or comments around 7C? Yes. Mr. Superintendent.
Just wanted to suggest maybe you just put newly revised for small assemblies as edited by Cypher IFC. Board of Trustees.
Anything else on 7C? Seeing none, let's move to 7D. 7D, the board will consider approving the superintendent's recommendation to give notice to an employee listed in the agenda pursuant to 21.103 of the Texas Educator Code that her employment with the district under a probationary contract is terminated. Questions?
I have a note that these are discussed in closed session.
Thank you. 7E, also to be discussed in closed session, the board will consider approving the superintendent's recommendation to give notice to this employee pursuant to 21.103 of the Texas Educator Code that his employment with the district under a probationary contract is terminated. 7F, the board will consider approving the superintendent's recommendation to give notice to this employee that her employment with the district under a term contract is proposed for termination, and to authorize the president of the board to notify the employee of the proposed action pursuant to 21.221 of the Texas Educator Code. And 7G, the board will consider making a determination that good cause did not exist as required by law for employees listed in the agenda to resign their respective employment contracts. I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight, and I would also like to thank those of you watching from home. May I have a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
Second? Thank you very much. We'll move into closed session.